Hey guys, this is your second video concerning your HTML and your CSS. Last week we talked about inline CSS, and that's where we typed in the actual CSS straight into the actual individual page of each individual website page that we were building. Now, this is inefficient when building sites that are more than one page, because say even think about a website that is small as 5 pages. You would have to copy and paste that code into every single instance that you were trying to affect, say a paragraph or a header or a background. And then even think about that even of something as small as a five page website. If every single time you had to type in, paragraph, ID of, gray text, if you, every single time that you had a paragraph, you had to put that in 5 times. For in each individual instance you had to put that in. And then what if to say you decided, hey, well, I think actually I want to make my text black instead of gray. Well, guess what, you've got to go through 5 pages and replace every single instance in those 5 pages. So it's an inefficient way to do it, but you have to know how to do that. It's a good tool to have in your back pocket. So the more efficient way to do it is to actually have an attached style sheet. um, so let's start at the beginning, and we're going to go over again, because I'm going to keep reiterating this to you guys, to define your site. First thing, we've defined our site right here, the new site root. Naming convention is underscore root. Always have your underscore root. I've created one that has a folder for images and a folder for CSS, because that's what we're going to do today. So always have an underscore root inside, always create one that has an images folder, and always one that has a CSS folder. Naming convention for CSS is always main.css. So that's another thing, kind of a general rule for web designers. So think about it kind of like the way that we have naming conventions for, the streets of a town that we live in, so streets and avenues, boulevard, that kind of thing. Those are naming conventions that we just have adopted. We've decided that's what we're going to do, and that's just the way it goes. So your underscore root, your images, your CSS, your main.css, those are all naming conventions, so that when other developers are coming through your code, that they kind of, they're seeing those benchmarks and they know where they are. So it's just a good habit to get into. And again, if I come around and I see that you've named it something else, I'm going to tell you to change it, or may not help you if you haven't, if you haven't defined your site. So let's go over here. I've just created a quick page here. I've created div ID of fake CSS and h1 a paragraph, and I've closed the div. So before we get started, there is two different things with CSS. There's IDs and there's classes. Now IDs are individualistic. They're singular. They can only happen once in a website, or in a web page, while say a class can happen multiple times. So I'm going to go over and open. All right, I've opened my one of my web pages, and so I've noticed now though, I actually don't do a lot of classes. I do mainly IDs in this particular website. So if you notice right here, the div ID of content, there's a div ID of Arizona tile, there's a div ID of print image detail. But one thing that you can see that I have a class, I just saw it right here, a break class of clear float. So we'll get into positioning later, but I can use a break class of clear float anywhere I want to, anytime I want to, and as many times in a website that I can. But I can only use this div Arizona tile once in this page. So that's a thing to think about. So as you'll start to figure out and learn as time goes on as to what you want to use, either a class or an ID, as you get more proficient. So to start off, let's go ahead and go to Window, Workspace Layout, and reset the designer, so that we're all on the same page. and then we're going to attach a style sheet. So let's go over here. You'll see CSS styles. There's all and current. There's no rules in here because we don't have anything attached. So what we're going to do, if you come down here, there's this lovely little menu, and you look at the plus sign, add a new CSS rule. So it automatically, because of the mouse that I've already put the ID inside, it automatically says, oh, look, your mouse is right by the div ID. Did you want to add an ID? So um, I can do that. It's, it's populated that thing for me. So like I clicked right here. You can see that there's a class, you have an ID, you have a tag, and you have a compound. We're going to start with ID for right now, and so just scroll on down to here. Choose where the rule will be defined. There's this document only, or if you click on it, there's new style sheet. So, and that's what we're going to do because we're going to add a style sheet. So say OK. I'm going to put it inside the wrong folder, the CSS, and I'm going to name it main.css because that's the naming convention. To make the yep, we know that. We got to save it for it to be real, and we will later. So automatically it gives us this lovely thing. For a lot of you, I understand you guys don't know and you haven't, I've been doing this for a long time, so I can pull this stuff literally straight out of my head, of what different things that I want to affect. So in your HTML CSS book, if you go to the very, very last page, there's two different pages. There's an HTML elements, which is the third from the last. There's an HTML attributes, and then there's the CSS properties. These are ones that I've memorized over the years. I mean, but if you guys ever need it, it's right there in the back of the book. These are the names that are default to HTML. Now I understand a lot of you have never done or HTML or CSS before, don't have these things memorized in your head, and this is a very awesome kind of crutch to kind of get you to that place. This is every single attribute that HTML or CSS can do for you. So obviously type, you can define the font family, you can change the background, the block is concerning text, your box, box is concerning the containers that your content lives in. You can add borders, solid, colors, dotted, whatever you need to do. Cancel that. Pardon me. Let me start this over. Sorry about that. So list. That's the other one. We talked about ordered list. Ordered list. You can define what the bullets are, if they're stars or squares or none. So, or even outlines of Roman numerals, and positioning, where we're going to do things where we're going to make things float left and float right and float in the middle, or whatever, however we want to do that, or even in the order in the z-index that they'll live. So if you're thinking about your XY axis, z being the third dimension, you can actually put things in front and behind things. Just kind of like in Photoshop or Illustrator, you can change the order if you want something in front of something. And extensions, which I don't usually don't use that often. So in the situation in which we are in, I'm going to talk to, because we're talking right here, you can tell it, we're talking to fake CSS on main CSS. So I'm going to tell it, I can say, hey, I want the type to be, let's find something that's very obnoxious, like Comic Sans, because everybody hates Comic Sans. And we're going to make the file size 12 and the font style of normal. I can change the line height to normal, or if I give it a value to say, so line height is the space between, so usually it defaults to, a 12 or a 14 if that's what it is, but I'm going to give it 18, just to make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. The font weight, I'll keep it as normal. We'll keep it normal. Text transform, you could make it all capitalized, all uppercase, lowercase, or none. And I'm going to make the font, I'll pick a gray. So you could do, like I say, you can do any of these. You don't have to check all these boxes. I'm just doing it just for the sake so that you can see the CSS on the other side. But anything that you don't apply, you don't have to deal with. So let's go ahead and apply and we'll watch it. Da-da, it automatically put it in. Now what if I wanted to, you can go in and you can say, well, I want to change the background to be a different color, too. The window's still open, so we can just go over there and put yellow, apply. So, and we're like, yeah, but I hate that the content is right up to the edge. I don't think that works. Let's go ahead and add some padding. So padding, I've talked to you a couple of times about that. Page 307 in your HTML, CSS book, you can kind of see there's a really nice visual of what the difference between margin and padding is. Padding is on the inside of the div that you've defined. The margin is on the outside, and obviously you can add border, which border is there. But we're going to talk to padding. So I'm going to tell it that I want 30 pixels. Now you can uncheck this box and define the attributes to each, but I think that it would be good if we did all of them just for the sake of such. So I'm going to say apply. So now there's 30 pixels down from, from the top of this div to the content, to the left of this div to the content, to the right, to the bottom, right? So let's do the same thing of margin. So we'll watch that happen, but I'm going to apply 50 to the margin. So that's going to put 50 from the top to the top of this div to the top of the window, and I'm going to put apply. So again, within a really short amount of time, I'm going to push OK. I've done a lot of different things to this div and made it look pretty nice. I mean, it's centered, it's got some nice padding on it, all that kind of good stuff. And I'm just talking to the fake CSS. So you can see the different attributes that are there, the margin right here, the padding in the gray. So let's skip over to main CSS. So you can see right here, hashtag is the identifier to an ID. So it's calling in the hashtag of fake CSS. Open bracket, and look it perfectly indented all the content so that you can look at it in a really quick and easy way. So my whole notation to you guys about indentation is not because I think it looks cool. Like Dreamweaver has installed this to to be the thing, because people kind of tend to recognize that, yeah, this is an easier way to look at it. It's an easier way to come back and edit with it. So we can see font family, Comic Sans, or cursive, depending. So what it's saying is that if in the instance, if Comic Sans MS is not available, find the next cursive font in the font family to replace it. There's a font size of 12, font style of normal, line height of 18, font weight of normal, font variant of normal, transform of none. So say I wanted to actually edit it straight from here, which we've done this before. If you go space, it automatically asks me like, oh, did you want to capitalize it or lowercase it or something like that? So I'm going to change it to uppercase just for the sake of such, just so we can see straight out what's happening. So now it's all capitalized. So I'm like, which is kind of hard to read. So I'm going to go back. Here. No. So yeah. So the color, uh-oh, my preview's not working. Hold on.